So it's late December 1895, and a few select elite Parisians get an invitation to the Salon Indien to see this thing called cinématographie. It turns out they're going to one of the first movie screenings ever. The Lumiere brothers are showing a series of short films that they've put together. And when I say they're short films, they're really short. Every one is basically like a clip. But this is 1895, so it's really cool. There's one of a baby eating breakfast. There's one of people bathing in the sea. And there's one called L'arrivée du train à la Clotet, which is the train arriving at the station. The spoiler is right in the title. The train arrives in the station in this one. But this was the first time anything like this was ever seen on screen. So the train slows down and it picks up speed and it's moving at this angle going right towards the viewer. It was so vivid and intense that people in the crowd immediately panicked and ran out of the theater for safety. Okay, so in all likelihood that probably didn't really happen. It's most likely an urban legend, one that's been told for a very long time. But I still like this story because I think it captures the way we react to new technologies, innovations that we know will change the way the world operates, the way we see things. And I think that's kind of where we are with social media. Okay, so it feels a bit weird to be making a video about social media, as I actually kind of hate talking about social media. Okay, I don't know if I hate it, but it's just a conversation that always seems to be the same talking points over and over. It's a highlight reel, how it's addictive, pulling the dopamine lever. We are now more connected than ever, and yet we are disconnected. It's these same talking points. And I think one of the things that really jumps out at me is the way that it resembles so much of the conversation that has always been there every time a new communication technology pops up. Whether that's the radio, television, the printing press. There's a lot of fear about what it's gonna do to our society, and people just kind of leave it there. The other thing that I just don't agree with our common responses to social media is the idea that it's all bad. It's powerful, but it just depends on how you use it. I've benefited from what I've learned through social media. I have used it to share art that I think brings clarity and encouragement. So all this conversation tends to be a little too black and white for me. That said, when it comes to the companies that are running these platforms, okay, I trust those guys a lot less.
The gatekeepers of meaningful freedom of speech are the social media companies. On social media.
What's the latest reaction on social media?
I've wasted the last 10 years of my life on social media. But
there's just been scandal after scandal after scandal after scandal after scandal.
Every so often you'll hear of people who were high-level executives at Twitter or Facebook or other social media giants come forward with a lot of dirt on how their companies had operated.
We have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works.
This month, a former Facebook employee, a whistleblower, came forward talking about all the different ways the company put their profits ahead of people's well-beings.
Political parties have been quoted in Facebook's own research saying, "We know you changed how you pick out the content that goes in the home feed. And now, if we don't publish angry, hateful, polarizing, divisive content, crickets. We don't get anything."
She affirmed what a lot of us already suspected, that the algorithm rewards polarizing, divisive, extreme content. And I've seen this kind of happen right in front of me, but what I've realized is that as bad as it's been, from what I can see, this gets even worse in a lot of other parts of the world, in Brazil, in Central Africa, the Philippines, Myanmar. So I hardly ever use Facebook these days. The last time I made a post, I think, was in 2017. So most of my Facebook friends don't know I have a kid now, let alone almost 3. That's fine by me. I haven't formally shut down the account. I still hop on for work needs every now and then, but I am practically inactive. All right, so these are the first 10 posts that pop up. Magazine article about LA, recipe from the New York Times, a Catholic magazine, a political post. I'm 4 posts in and I haven't seen anything by a personal friend. A distant cousin on the total opposite side of the family. An environmental org. A college friend. Pokemon Go Nashville. And a friend in Myanmar who I think is cool but who I haven't spoken with since grad school. So I joined Facebook wanting to connect with friends and to stay in touch with them. And this is not a representative group of my friends. If you told me I should go to dinner with this combination of people plus a couple of political magazines and whatnot, that does not sound like a fun time. You know, I can hang with these people individually, but en masse, no, it just doesn't work. But this is kind of the digital equivalent of what Facebook is doing. It's saying, hey, let's get this guy you knew in high school, the creepy neighbor, some person who thinks he's a closer part of your life than he really is, and throw them all in the same dinner party. And it's not just the lack of social chemistry. You know, for every one of these relationships, we adjust the way we approach them based on the space, and we just can't do that online. All right, I'm not just sharing this so we can feel all doom and gloom about social media and helpless because social media giants are taking over the world. Now, I think there's actual things we can do that can better influence the online world that we're going to be living in from here on out. Now, I need to say that anything I say that's at the individual level really is a drop in the bucket, and there are broader changes that need to take place, but those are still important because they can influence those systems. I think it's a really good analogy to the whole climate change thing. There are your individual level choices, and those matter. Those are of consequence, but they also need to be connected to the broader ecosystem, the systemic changes that influence the choices you and other people can make, and they need to work hand in hand. It's not an either or thing. It's the same way with social media. Anyway, I've heard some people use this phrase, when you don't pay for a product, you are the product. And here's how that works in social media. Social media is basically a three-way exchange. When I hop onto Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, I'm getting something out of it. I'm getting a chance to share my work as a creator, a chance to be inspired by other people, a chance to maintain my human connections, and maybe even expand that circle. Plus, Squid Game memes. I pretty much get all this for free. It's not like I have to pay social networks to do this. But I do pay something. I pay attention to my newsfeed and to stuff in front of me. And that might not seem like a big deal, but time and attention is actually one of the most valuable things these days. And social media has found a way to commodify it, to put a literal price tag on it. That attention gets sold to companies and advertisers who can slip in a good number of ads in between all the stuff I actually care about. And so it's these companies who then send the actual money to the social media platforms, closing the loop. And they send quite a bit of money, actually. Now, I'm sure a lot of you already knew this stuff. It's not brand new information, but it's very possible to know it without really thinking about it very often because it's so baked into what we do every day. But here's why it's important to put more thought into this. When we consider what role we play in the dynamic, we can actually play that role more responsibly. Take the advertiser's perspective. Now, I work for somewhere that occasionally needs to advertise on social media. Most advertisers need a way to promote their goods, and because social media companies have such a large monopoly on our attention, it's hard to escape the system completely. But it doesn't make you consider that writing them a blank check in order to promote yourself makes them only more powerful. And in the end, it makes it easier for them to keep raising the prices that you end up paying in order to be seen. So right now I have over 5,000 followers on Instagram. This platform was designed in the most simple and straightforward way. You'd figure that every post I put up would be seen by about 3,000 to 4,000 people, right? Just knock off the people who don't log in every day, that sort of thing. But here's just a few of my random posts from the past month. My last video only reached 121 people. My last piece of artwork was seen by around 822 people. And a bit of a personal update posted over the weekend, that was seen by 609 people. Now that's still a lot of people, enough where it's worth it to show up mindfully, but it's still only 10% of the amount of people who said they want to see my stuff. Around a year ago, I had a post go somewhat viral. It ended up shared around 75,000 times. A few of my posts afterwards hit around 12,000 views apiece. Since then, I've noticed a big trend. My views will stop substantially for a while, down to the 400 to 800 range. I'll have a post that gets shared a bit, that gets me another big spike in views. Then my posts get buried again. Now overall, I think I post pretty consistent content over time. seems a lot more like this fluctuation has less to do with what I post and more to do with the algorithm. Now, my suspicion is that there's some drug dealer tactics going on here that'll let me have some of the dopamine hit of a viral post and then slow it down a bit, keep you chasing the dragon. This is kind of why I tell everybody to read their engagement statistics with a big grain of salt. It has less to do with your creativity and the quality of your stuff, and just more to do with the algorithm. Now, there's a big reason why Instagram won't just show my stuff to the 5,000 people who said they want to see it, and it's so they can sell me this. Now, if you've never boosted a post before, here's what it's like. I get to pick what my audience is like, and here's one of the things I find interesting. One of these options is people who like my page. People who like my page in theory should already be seeing my posts, but they're not, and here's the spot where I have to go in order to pay for them. As a user, I am all the more aware of how highly incentivized these companies are to just get me to pay more and more attention, more and more time to my screen, at all costs. Content that just makes me angry at people who have different beliefs than me is actually really, really effective at that. Now, this is tricky. There's some nuance here. I think it's actually right and important to get angry at stuff, at injustice, and to leverage that into action. But being aware of how easy it is to be manipulated through your anger makes you process that feeling a little more strategically. Online debates, especially with strangers, contribute very, very little. They're probably even counterproductive towards making the changes you would actually want to see. When it comes to mindless scrolling, I try and counteract that with social media habits that are more mindful. Now, the idea of mindfully consuming social media content probably isn't brand new to you, but here's what it looks like for me. I'll sit down, pour some coffee, and actually enjoy the stuff I'm scrolling through, not just letting my thumb kind of parse through everything for me. I'll read people's long captions. I'll spend time appreciating their design, their illustrations, their photography. And when I see stuff that I really like, that sparks some ideas of my own, I'll save it. I use Instagram and Twitter's bookmarking and saving features quite a bit so that when it's my turn to create stuff, I can pull back to that inspiration and be reminded of it. When I'm using it this way, I feel like I'm actually getting what I signed up for. Inspiration, education, some new ideas. And when I start to feel like I'm slipping into the more mindless space again, just kind of scrolling endlessly, aimlessly, then I'll stop. This is one way I make sure I'm not just giving my attention away cheaply, but that I'm still making the most out of my experience. Here's perhaps one of my biggest suggestions. Don't get too dependent on a single social media platform to use social media the way you want to. For me, my most robust social media activity happens on Instagram, and that's fine. But lately I've been focusing on building my presence in some other spaces online. Because if the time comes where I ever completely need to up and leave, I still want to have a connection to the audience I've built up over time. I don't want to be famous, but having an audience does allow me to keep doing the stuff I enjoy. So as a creator, I've learned how to take the stuff I've made and make it work for different platforms without adding a whole lot of work to myself. I've learned how to use recordings of my drawings so that it doesn't just work well on a static Instagram post, but also something more video-based like TikTok. For creators, I think it's important to have a space where you can store and showcase your work that isn't a social media site, aka your own website, pretty much. Here's mine. It's like part blog, part portfolio. I have a little shop going on over here. I really don't update this as often as I would like, and it doesn't get a ton of traffic, but it's there, and I like having my work there, and if some social media apocalypse were to ever happen, it's better off here. Okay, even if you're not an artist or a video maker and have stuff like that you're always trying to share and get people to watch or subscribe to or whatever, it's likely that you still follow other creators. You follow other people who are trying to build their brand, build their platform, and they're doing stuff you support. Follow them on their other platforms. You have a part to play in this too. Even if it's not like a platform you use every day, maybe someday you will. You know, I think of all these people I've connected with on Tumblr in like 2009. I wonder what they're up to right now. The absolute best way to be independent of social media platforms when it comes to sharing creative work or getting other people's creative work is through email newsletters. I know everyone asks you to sign up for them, but the reason is because they are so valuable. Unlike social media where an algorithm only shows my posts to like 10% of the people who subscribe for it, email delivers to almost everybody. This is probably a good time to mention that my video has motivated me to revive my newsletter, which you can sign up for at philippelazaro.com. Remember that website I was talking about earlier? I don't send out spammy stuff, I just keep it as a way to keep us connected. But to add some value to there and to show my appreciation, I do send out my recommendations, stuff I've been reading, learning, listening to, etc., that you might get something out of as well. All right, I said we were also going to talk about the systemic stuff, and here it is. We can have a better control over the actions of these social media giants through the power of the public, through legislation. This isn't a thing we talk about a lot during election seasons. Nobody's ever really campaigned on how they're going to influence the social media landscape. It's not in any major party's policies, as far as I can see. But you know what? Think of how much time you spend on social media throughout the day, or at least the average person. That is a huge space to go with minimal oversight. Every now and then you'll see some lawmakers call some executives from Facebook or Twitter into Congress to testify. And whenever this happens, it just makes everyone look bad. It makes the executives look super sketchy, but it also, more often than not, makes our congresspeople look really technologically illiterate.
Will you commit to ending Finsta?
Senator, again, let me explain. We don't actually do Finsta.
Now, when you start to think about how the government should be involved, it is going to bring up some complex and probably challenging questions. And I think those are worth exploring. I would much rather have a balance of power than having it all be concentrated in the boardroom of these social media giants. Well, like I said, this isn't my typical favorite topic, but I thought it was an important one, and clearly one I had enough thoughts on to fill up this video. In the spirit of what I said, be sure to follow me in all my other spots around the web. Gotta diversify where you're showing up, including that newsletter I mentioned earlier, and you can get to that via the website I mentioned earlier, philippelazaro.com. I will have more materials for you very, very soon, but until then, use this internet thing, use it wisely. All right, see ya.